Wuthering Waves just recently celebrated 1 year of release about a month ago, and to say that a lot has happened in that time frame would be an understatement. It feels like the game's gone through more in a single year than other gachas do in 2 or 3. Impressive given how shaky of a start the game had in the beginning. With my channels being predicated on discussion and food for thought, I wanted to make a video reflecting on how I feel WUA has performed up until now, talking about how I personally feel about the game, the things it's done well up to this point, what I think they could improve over the second year, but most importantly to answer if the game's gotten better and whether or not you should start playing it if you haven't yet or continue playing if you did. Unsurprisingly, this will be a more talk-focused video of me just rambling and whatnot, but I'll try my best to keep things organized. So let's discuss how Wuthering Waves is doing 1 year later. As someone who got to experience the game since closed beta 3 in winter of 2024 just before live release, I remember my initial thoughts on the game having a very strong foundation but needing more substance to, well, substantiate it. Granted, this was during closed beta, so obviously the game wasn't finished yet, but I couldn't help but remark on how it felt like the game needed a lot more meat around the bone, so to speak, and other creators who tested the game at that time felt the same way. Then when release came around, we actually got to play and check out more of the game, although I'd be hard-pressed to say play. I personally didn't have any issue with downloading, installing, and getting in, but I know a lot of people did. The first week of WUA's release could be described as pure chaos. The game dealt with a ton of optimization issues that made even high-end gaming computers struggle to handle it, and overall it was a pretty messy launch, causing many people to write off WUA over a disappointing first impression. The circumstances surrounding this game were more domineering than that of other gachas. People knew of Wuthering Waves for a significant amount of time, and with the strong premise and amazing gameplay footage we saw earlier, expectations ran very high, not to mention people were hoping to find a game that could truly rise up to the occasion that Genshin Impact's legacy had set. Sentiments were mixed, if not potentially erring on the side of pessimism following WUA's initial tumultuous release. That was quickly addressed though. WUA's development team spared no time, expense, or manpower to correct all the issues that came from its initial stumble, offering generous compensation on multiple occasions, far more than they honestly needed to. Doing so, however, sent a very uplifting message. Kuro cared about the game and how players felt. Yes, bluntly speaking, they really messed up on the live release, but while most developers would have just been like, oh, to hell with it, Kuro very much expressed a desire to make things right and redoubled their efforts. From what I've been told by Punishing Grey Raven players, a predecessor and sister title, this was actually par for the course with Kuro's track record, which is why people were optimistic about Wuthering Waves in the first place. It had a good company behind it. From a gameplay point of view, I'd say one thing that really lends itself to my enjoyment of WUA is how fluid the game felt after they managed to fix everything. For one, I never realized just how much of a difference 120 FPS would be from 60, especially in a game where you need to be able to dodge and parry at a moment's notice. The attack and movement fluidity also feels really good, that you can dash forward or backwards, dash in the air as well, cancel certain attacks, chain-link multiple character attacks through swap cancelling. Mechanically, the game's a beauty. It runs the smoothest and most fluid out of any mainstream gacha I've played. I say that in terms of mechanics, I don't mean PC. Yes, I'm aware that Wuthering Waves can be pretty demanding on the processor and GPU. Anyway, so they definitely touch on the quality of life features too, like how stamina doesn't drain when you're out of combat, or how you can run up walls instead of painstakingly climbing. Not realistic by any stretch of the imagination, but when did action hack and slash RPGs have realistic movement physics to begin with? I honestly feel like this game's movement should be the gold standard of any open world action gacha game, and there's a lot of them coming out in the future. Chief of all when it comes to fluidity, I would say it can be how you can swap between characters mid-attack in basically any state. You can do it while attacking, while jumping, while running, or even while being staggered. Basically, whenever the unit's off cooldown, you can swap to them and then instantly swap to your third party member to potentially have 3 characters out all at once attacking. It's even a viable strategy too, where Kuro designs characters who can fit into that style, and there are certain parties and attack rotations that only work by rapidly swapping to and from your party. Animation cancelling is a huge thing to include in combat because it gives more agency to the player and more input responsiveness. Point being, the game feels really good to play. I've only ever used a keyboard and mouse, but I'm sure controller players also appreciate how responsive the game is. Elaborating more on the combat side of things is where I think WUA really began to come into its own. The usage of gadgets has always been a thing in other open world games, but I love how the very first one we get is a grappling hook that can effectively double as an extra jump for more height, which at times can also have actual combat applications. The one system I'm sure drew everyone's attention though was the ecosystem. Most gacha games have an equipment base consisting of different accessories with their own array of stats, but that would really be all they were, passive boost to a character. Wuthering Waves was the first one I've personally played where your equipment could actually play a functional role in combat, ranging from summons that fight alongside you to buffs given to the character to transforming into the actual monster itself. Such a simple idea of capturing an enemy and using its power for yourself creates an entire new layer of gameplay that adds more personality in how one person plays the character compared to another. Understandably, there's going to be optimization and min-maxing and stuff, like how this one echo is very clearly meant to be the main echo of this one character, but even simple swap-out tips like changing your entire overworld party to Infernal Rider echoes to give you faster traversability, or deciding between Nightmare or regular Phalian Baron for ease of use, or better energy regen for GN helps to distinguish one player from another. It's also just, cool transforming into a gigantic bird or monkey to smash everything. It makes the game feel larger than life. On the subject of larger than life, that's the feel I have for Wuthering Waves in general. While there's without question a ton of gacha-related mechanics to this game, I can say on multiple occasions I forget this game's even a gacha to begin with. Gacha titles have definitely improved in quality and scope over the past half-decade, certainly more than those bootleg mobile titles we had back in like 2015 and stuff. As someone who's been playing gacha games for almost 11 years now, I've seen how the genres added more depth to their gameplay than surface level mechanics. But even then, you can't compare them to non-gacha titles when it comes to gameplay depth. They're intended to be played on your phone and enjoyed with a superficial amount of attention and investment. That's how mobile games are, but Wuwa, despite technically still being playable on mobile and being a gacha, has been building itself to be a lot more than just that. I already went over how the game's movements are on par with actual hack and slash games in terms of how smooth and snappy it feels, almost to the point where I don't know how you can play this game with only 2 thumbs. Then, the existence of dodge and parrying giving players the ability to quote-unquote outplay enemies and overcome any challenge not by swiping, but also improving your mechanics. You can literally solo bosses in this game without taking a single point of damage if you learn their patterns and get the hang of dodging and parry timers. In addition, when you look into its characters and how each of them has a distinct playstyle centered around their own win conditions, while you are supposed to play them in groups of 3 bouncing off each other, the majority of the game's units are designed to have a fully comprehensive playstyle and identity to them. Some characters enter a different stance that gives them a unique set of attacks like Jinxi, Camellia, and Phoebe. Others have a base form and empowered form that dramatically amplifies their power level for a short time like Jian, Shangliao, and Cardadia. Some units prefer to spread the DPS across multiple hard hits like Carlotta and Donnie, while others want to charge up for a big explosion like Changli and Brandt. The gameplay extends beyond the scope of normal attacks, skill does this, and ultimate does something bigger. The roster continues to expand and add new units to every element, but characters in this game are defined less by the element or weapon type they hold, and more by movement physics, attack animations and rotations, and of course, playstyle. Gachas are games that heavily pressure players to go for certain things in a certain way, kind of like a formula. This option is mathematically the best for your results, this team is statistically the best for that content, and whatnot. At a certain point, it feels less like you're playing the game yourself and more just reading a guide on how to play it, and while guides, optimization, and efficiency are still present in Wuwa, the game lets you approach content in whatever manner that resonates with you. If you're the type of person who enjoys team building and wants to create a bunch of different squads to take on the game's content, by all means you're welcome to. If you're someone who sticks to vertical investing in a couple parties and going through the entire game with just them, you can also do that, just so long as enemies are not immune to that element. If you're someone who gets off on skill issuing Dark Souls, also no damage, Fox only Final Destination to assist a super play to take on the game, you can do that as well. And believe me, we do have that category. There is a small group of players in the community who religiously, fiendishly take on every endgame boss using only a single character, Danjin. They refuse to play anyone else and deliberately get her down to 1 HP by her own drain mechanic, then go through the entire boss perfect parrying and dodging every single attack. It's freaking insane how surgical some players get with this. But that's part of the strength of Wuwa. A huge factor of what makes a game popular and successful is player agency, the feeling of the player being able to approach the game in their own way and being rewarded for the effort they put in. Gachas don't really let you do that, whether because of time, stamina, gameplay, or even financial constraints. You're typically forced to play the game in a certain fashion, regardless of if that's the way you want to play. Wuthering Waves is less about winning through systems and numbers and more about winning through what works for you. In a sense, while the game does have a modicum of power creep, it is yet to actually get in the way of player skill and execution. And I hope it never does. Next thing I want to talk about is the game's content. I went over the foundation and structure of the game so far, but what about the content side of things? Initially, I found the absence of much to do in the game to cause players to eventually grow bored of it. Even in later parts of version 1 like 1.3 and 1.4, I felt a bit of that. Not to say there wasn't anything to do, exploring the overworld was of great importance for more than just exploration enthusiasts. Progression-oriented players had to as well for the purposes of expanding their databanks. Mind you, every gacha game starts out kind of bare bones at the beginning, it's not like Wuwa was the only one who had this. But on top of deciding to bring out version 2 a lot earlier than people expected, when comparing the total map size and volume of version 1 to version 2, it's like double, and that goes for content as well, for all players. Exploration-wise, they tore the map open essentially by giving us the ability to fly all over the map, adding even more fluidity to movement in the sense that we could go basically anywhere we could place our feet on thanks to the glider. Story-wise, version 1.0 story was honestly pretty middle of the road. Not bad, but not great. But then the narrative began to get better over time and version 2 story was a lot bigger and more well written, all while still giving those who didn't care to read or watch the chance to skip and get a TLDR. There is so much quality of life and convenience in this game, it's hard to find an area that doesn't get improved in some way, shape, or form. But anyways, last and most certainly not least, gameplay content. Tower of Adversity, Tactical Hologram, and Wuthering Waves. Not to mention even more permanent endgame content coming around in the near future. They're continuously adding more endgame modes, more permanent things for us to check out, and test our mechanics and team building. At this point, WoW has almost become a full-on standalone release with how much there is to do. Even after you expend your daily energy, you just have a massive checklist of things that could keep you busy well into the next version. There's still a hard limit, don't get me wrong, it's no MMORPG, but a large reason why people have been enjoying version 2 so far is because the game has expanded and improved a ton in every which way possible. Kudos not just catering to one demographic, they're trying to please every part of the community, and that's ultimately why I find myself enjoying Wuthering Waves more and more with each passing version. Sol Lee, the CEO of Kuro, gave an interview last August and had a very simple thing to say. I think it's okay as long as we can survive, right? Which really spoke to me. Kuro isn't concerned about trying to be better than anyone or even trying to prove itself. They just want to make a good game. As long as they're profitable, they'll keep focusing on making a good title. It's been almost a year since then, and I think they stuck true to their word. Wuthering Waves has never been the biggest, most profitable game. Credit where credit is due, they're giving us a lot of free stuff, and they could easily find opportunities to milk us for more money. But they only ask for enough to keep things going, and the rest is up to the player's goodwill, which I think they do a fantastic job nurturing too. Kuro has made mistakes throughout WoW's timeframe, but they were always intent on correcting and making up for them as quickly as possible. They're quick to respond to player feedback and criticism, evidenced by how many quality of life updates they include per version. They don't exactly pull a fast one on the metagame by power creeping old units into obscurity. The main character Rover is an extremely meta-relevant unit and was even given their own personal 5-star weapon for the Arrow version. And best of all, they give us meaningful endgame content to actually make use of our time and resources invested. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, Wuthering Waves and by extension their developer Kuro talked a big game and is actually delivering on it. When they say something, they follow through with it. That can be hard to come by in the gacha field. Companies are always trying to find ways to squeeze you for more money or do the bare minimum. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like the devs really do care about this game beyond the realm of turning a profit. They've demonstrated the capacity to build a strong foundation and continue improving it. Lots of character designs to appeal to any type of playstyle and players. Lots of overworld exploration for those who enjoy it. Good story for the lore buffs. Skins for the gooners. Skins for the cultured. Challenging endgame content that rewards you for learning the mechanics and strategizing. And the best part is they keep doing it. Usually by the first year, companies start to get complacent, but I don't see that for Kuro. The game keeps getting better and better. It's not perfect, but what matters most to me is that they're moving upwards. They're not stagnating or moving down. That's good enough for me. What do you guys think about Wuthering Waves after a year of release? Do you think the game has gotten much better and recommended to others, or do you think I'm being way too charitable with them? Let me know in the comments down below. For now though, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @FarasFarum, join my Discord server, and check out my other Wuthering Waves discussions if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.